We're now at 7 o'clock, and it's time for me to introduce our guest speaker. We talked about the New Hampshire GOP platform. I have few copies of it. It's on the website. You can put in NHGOP into Google. It'll take you to the website. You can see the platform. You can see the bylaws, etc. And I want to just read one little section. The beginning part of the GOP platform in New Hampshire is the statement of principles. And there's a section here that says, "We believe that life is sacred from conception to natural death, and that we cannot diminish the value of one category of human life without diminishing the value of all human life." That's in our platform.
Oh, that's good.
Okay, so with that, I asked for, there's a couple of organizations that are very active in promoting the right to life, and probably the most prominent one is New Hampshire Right to Life. So we're privileged tonight to have as our guest speaker State Representative Kurt Wuelper, who is on the board of New Hampshire Right to Life. And for our guest speakers, we don't impose a 3-minute time limit. We don't use the gong, but give your thing, and then I'm sure there's going to be some questions.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you for having me. So just for the record, I'm actually Vice President of New Hampshire Right to Life at this time. I previously served as President for maybe 5 or 6 years. I was a treasurer for 1 year only, had to do that. And I've been active in the life movement for over 30 years. This is great to start with this delegate business and the platform. In the 1990s, the early 90s, the Republican Party platform was not pro-life. It did contain no language similar to what Norm read tonight. And New Hampshire Right to Life set out to change that. And we did it through the delegate effort. Because it's the delegates that make the party platform. And so a few of us started beating the bushes and persuading people to do this, to run to be delegates to the Republican convention. That was the first office in which I ever ran. Thank you. By 1996, we had enough delegates at the state convention that we could actually put some pro-life language into the party platform. That didn't mean the party would adhere to it. We barely passed. But it did pass. In 1998, in 2000, every year there was a Donnybrook at the Republican convention over the right to life language. The first two, those two, they were trying to strip it out. They still try that on occasion, but I don't believe in the last 3 conventions that's even been taken seriously. From 2002 and onward, we've moved to strengthen it to where we got to the position where Norm said, which effectively says, we believe all human life, from conception to natural death, which is the mantra of New Hampshire Right to Life, by the way, is valuable and should be honored, respected, defended. For the first time, and all the time I've been working in this field, we're in a place where this could be, and likely will be, the issue in a significant campaign, statewide, nationwide, right? What's happening this year is going to make an enormous difference in terms of how our government, and we can't deal so much with the national level, But in New Hampshire, we can't. Because if that draft opinion becomes the formal opinion, then each state will have to decide for itself how it is going to recognize human life. How are they going to protect human life, and how are they not? We've already seen in this session of the legislature bills to write the right to abortion into our Constitution. Bills to write into statute the right to abortion. And bills, of course, to moot the Fetal Life Protection Act, which is about the fourth step, or the fifth step, in the things that Governor Sununu promised he would sign. And he did sign it, kind of behind his back, and against his own, he says against his will. But in any event, that's where we stand right now. For the first time in the history of the state of New Hampshire, we actually have the protection of human life starting at 24 weeks from abortion. We got there step by step. Just like with the platform, then I see no coincidence here. Step by step, we got there. First, we got parental notification done. We had had it before. It had gone to the U.S. Supreme Court and been approved. The Democrats took office and repealed it. It's a statute. That happens. That can still happen in New Hampshire. That's all I have to say about that. It can still happen. Right? So we did that. We got the criminal statutes to recognize that there was a more severity to a crime. Assault, manslaughter, not manslaughter. Violent crimes against women were more serious if the babies were killed. And so they enhanced the penalties. Last term, not this one, the one before, we actually got the homicide laws to recognize that babies as old as 20 weeks should be protected under the homicide laws. Because previous, the only way they were protected was if the mother got killed. Now, it's a separate crime. So if a drunk driver, which is the most common situation, kills a mother and her child, then there are two crimes. And now we have the Fetal Life Protection Act, and became the first state in the Union to actually go from having no restrictions on abortion in our state to having protection from 24 weeks by legislative action. And it has been under wicked assault this session, and that will continue. But these delegates are the ones that set the platform, laid the foundation for us to build on to get to where we are today. So this is a very serious matter, and I encourage you all to take it. I know you will, because you're here, right? But recognize that the other side is taking it seriously as well. So I should talk about New Hampshire Right to Life, because that's why I'm here. So New Hampshire Right to Life started pre-Roe versus Wade, in recognition of what was going on across our country. And just so you know, at that time there were states like New York, I use them as the poster child for a while maybe, who were loosening their abortion laws or repealing their abortion laws, which I will just tell you had been put in somewhere between 1910 and whenever, with the intent of protecting women from illegal abortions. But the abortions themselves were not illegal. It was just they were going to back alley people to get them, because the medical profession takes an oath at that time to protect life. And they took that oath seriously. So most doctors wouldn't do them. That's still the case today. They don't take that same oath anymore. The new Hippocratic Oath basically says, I'll be a good person and obey the law, which makes the law even more important, but it doesn't do much for the doctors. In any event, so abortionists were pretty much the dregs of the medical profession, if they even were that. And so lots of laws were put into place to protect the women from that. And when you hear about back alley abortions, that's true. There were back alley abortions, and they did lead to these laws. But the numbers were nowhere near what the other side will tell you. They're not even in the same county. They're not in the same state. Right? But they were there. It was a serious issue. It was dealt with that way. And until the 70s, that's the way abortion law was in our country. They either had no law, which everybody assumed meant that the baby would be protected anyway, or they had laws, and things were getting worse. And that's what they said when they did Roe versus Wade. They said, well, you know, the trend in the country is in this direction. Well, by that logic, the trend in the country is the other direction nowadays, because we have so many states who have been passing restriction after restriction after restriction, including ourselves, right, within the confines of what SCOTUS will do. And New Hampshire Right to Life has been driving that in our state. Our better-known counterpart, to which Noam referred, Cornerstone, started about 20 years ago. And they're a broad spectrum, very conservative group. They do a lot of great work. But they don't focus on life the way we do. So that's what we do. We support all kinds of activities in the state that promote life, whether it's 40 Days for Life or seminars, education days. We don't deal with the people who are outside the clinics, counseling. We support them with prayer, but not any other way. A lot of our supporters do that. But we're not directly associated with that in any way. And the reason for that is because way back in the day, we had an issue in Greenland. No, it wasn't in Greenland, it was in Portsmouth at that time. They since moved the going field out to Greenland and the issue stopped. And so New Hampshire Right to Life separated itself from that. So how do we do that? We do that by things like me, or the people from New Hampshire Right to Life coming out and talking to any group you have. And encouraging and supporting and educating. We have a website. It's, if you want to know anything at all about life, especially early life. Oh, before I go on, I'll finish that. Anything at all about life and life issues, especially early life, we get it on our website somewhere. Right? We are frequently now being contacted by places from other states saying, can we use some of this material that's on your website? So if you want to see fetal development, you want to talk about types of abortions and how they're done, how many, when, whatever, it's all there. And I'll just tell you anything you want to know, it's NHRTL, New Hampshire Right to Life.org, Facebook, the web. So I'm saying you find us everywhere. So right now, this is what we're really focused on, filling these seats and finding candidates. I'm a chairman of one of my other hats that isn't so fancy as that we go to the pink thing, but one of those other hats is I'm chairman of the New Hampshire Right to Life PAC, and we recruit, train, and support candidates for statewide office in New Hampshire. And we're obviously looking for candidates who will be supporting of life, really supporting of life. We have two levels of support, which will be eventually posted on our website. Probably before the primary, we'll do one, and then after the primary, another. Before the primary, and well, either way, we have two levels of support, three levels of support. We have endorsement, wherein candidate actually pledges that they will defend life at all the time, without excuses and without any exceptions, from conception to natural death. There's a few other things that are in there, but this is what it comes down to. And if they do that, And we believe them, and believe me, there are lots that say they will, but they turn out to not. So if we believe that, then we will endorse them and support them to the level that we can. There are a lot more candidates who want to be pro-life, and they are to a substantial degree. So, for example, in the case of abortion, they might support a ban on abortion with the exceptions of rape and incest, or fetal anomalies, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute. Given the lack of we will support such candidates, generally speaking. Right? So, but we make a clear line of demarcation. You either are, we won't endorse anybody who isn't 100% pro-life, but we will support ones that are pretty close. If they want us to. And not everybody wants us to, so there's that too. We have an educational trust fund at New Hampshire Right to Life, and they do educational events. In the last couple of years, they've been focusing on educational events like we have tables at Soul Fest. It's a wonderful event. Thank you for having it. I've been there, I think, every year for the last 15 years. But we do that, and we witness to all those people and recruit them to the pro-life cause. It's strictly educational. The Educational Trust Fund has funded a number of abortion healing retreats. Maybe, I don't know, maybe a couple times a year, maybe 3. They're working with Rachel's Vineyard for that. And they've had some good success in terms of people needing healing from abortion. Because not only does abortion kill children, it hurts women and men. So the last one we did was traumatic. I can't testify to how that worked because I wasn't there. And of course, it's all very confidential. So we have a PAC that supports candidates. We have an educational trust fund that does educational events and supports educational institutions. And we have the New Hampshire Right to Life Committee that works, how do I want to put this, in the public sphere to promote the cause of life. And when I say that, I can't let this go by without saying the cause of life at all ages. We have been very successful in New Hampshire in keeping assisted suicide out of our state. But it's a continuing struggle. Right? The other side does not stop. They continue to come forward and say, oh no, you ought to give people the right to kill themselves, which would be bad enough because that in itself devalues human life. But what they all end up with doing, and I just let you know this, anytime you hear about assisted suicide, medically assisted termination, all of these are recipes for murder is what they are. Because in the end, the person who is supposed to be killing themselves may or may not do that. But nobody knows. Nobody knows. Because every bill that has come out so far, and every law in every state that has it, there is no autopsy. There is no investigation. There is no anything. The presumption is, because the prescription is written, that's the cause of death. And that's the end of it. It's a license to kill. That's what it is. If anybody ever comes up with a way of being able to do this without that, we might have to reconsider our position. But in the meantime, that's where we are. And that on that arena, we've been so successful that we barely see one try a year. But we get the support of the disability community for that, which we don't get when we're talking about early life. When we're talking about abortion in the case of fetal anomalies, we don't get the support of the disability community that we get for when we're talking about assisted suicide. Because at that end of the life, they see it, they understand very clearly that it's being directed at them. But early in life, they don't see that. But that's exactly what it is. It's the same thing all over again. The same lies are told. And they tell the horror stories of a woman who had a situation and blah, 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 blah. And I don't want to go through all that. And I'm not saying that there aren't such situations. What I am saying is they are so extremely rare. But when you write into the law what we're about to do, because the governor's going to sign House Bill 1609, when you write into the law and say you can abort because of fetal anomaly incompatible with life, then you have to start thinking about, well, what does that mean? And fetal anomaly is not a problem. Everybody understands fetal anomaly. Pretty much everybody understands that each one of us was a fetal anomaly. So they put the phrase incompatible with life, and now you run into the murky gray sinkhole. Because what does that mean? When that diagnosis is given, and that's what it is, it's just a diagnosis. And year after year, when we have these bills that aren't in the House, we had them this year, we have people who come from around New Hampshire, usually it is somewhere between 2 and 7 or 8, to testify to the fact that their children, either they themselves or their children, were diagnosed with these fatal anomalies. Fatal. And yet here they are testifying in front of our committee. Right? So I have 2 children. They both were diagnosed with the same fetal anomaly. They both had it. But one is a motivational speaker, and one is graduating from college next week. Right? Amen. Right? But it gets worse. The FDA just came out and talked about the diagnoses of fetal anomalies and how often they're wrong, totally wrong. Now we know this because we hear the testimony, we know the people, right? But yet, when those diagnoses are made, the whole medical profession goes abort the child because you wouldn't want it to live, because it's not compatible with life. If you can figure out what compatible with life means. Because it certainly doesn't mean that the baby's going to die tomorrow, or next week, or in a couple months. Oh, a day after it gets born? A year? There's no definition, believe me, there's none. There's no legal definition, there's no medical definition. So where does it take you? It takes you to these fetal diagnoses, which can be used for eugenics, and are being used for eugenics in, say, Denmark or Iceland, where they claim to have eliminated Down syndrome from their population. Now I get these mixed up because I'm not a numbers guy, not detail oriented. One of those countries says they have actually eliminated Down syndrome from their population. The other one says they've eliminated 97%. In the United States, over 70% of the diagnoses of Down syndrome are aborted. Now, you say a Down syndrome isn't incompatible with life. Really? Who makes the call?
Yeah.
When do they make the call? How do they make the call? And the answer is a diagnosis is given. The doctor doesn't want to deal with it. The hospital doesn't want to deal with it. The health insurance company certainly doesn't want to deal with it. That person might live. And just think of what that might cost. Or even worse, they would live and they might need additional medical care. Right? And we're going to be paying. And it's going to cost. And we don't want to do it. We just don't want to pay. The doctors don't know how to deal with the actual anomalies where the baby might only live for, say, 15 minutes after it's born, because they don't know anything about them. Because they're so rare, they don't see enough cases to be able to treat them. Right? Rick Santoni had a, oh, never mind, it's too many details. Right? But in any event, this is the struggle we're in. Right? The other side has one thing going for them. They lie. And they're supported by a lot of money. They are, it's not an accident that the abortion rate among minorities, particularly among blacks, is 7 to 10 times what it is among the general population, of which they are a part. It's not an accident, because the biggest abortion provider in the abortion industry was founded to get rid of blacks. Right? And they never changed. They changed the name down at the biggest thing center they have in New York last year over a lot of protests. But they never changed what they do. That's where they focus their attention. It's working. Right. New Hampshire Right to Life is here to fight against all of that all the time. And that's what we do.
See if we have any questions for people. Anybody want to have some questions? Priscilla?
Two parts. Regarding fetal anomalies incompatible with life, just wondering if you or other people, if you haven't heard of this book, My Child, My Gift. It is...
I haven't.
Okay, somebody from the Diocese of Providence in Rhode Island, and I'm not Roman Catholic, gave it to me, and it's about babies. It's a compilation of stories, of real life stories of people who have had a poor diagnosis. In other words, a doctor has told the pregnant woman that she has a fetal anomaly incompatible with life. Very often anencephaly.
Anencephaly is one, yeah.
Something to do with the brain not being formed.
Open brainstem, yeah.
Yeah. And it's just a beautiful book about, and I can get you the information, highly recommended, about how parents decide to carry that baby to term, and maybe that baby only lived outside the womb 45 minutes. But they loved that baby and held that baby. I'm far right wing, as you can tell.
Well, yeah, you're an awful radical.
Yeah.
You think loving your baby's a bad thing.
Just my question is, you mentioned that the Hippocratic Oath was changed at some point.
1957.
Okay, so it was quite a while ago.
Yeah.
But can you elaborate on that? What was changed? I mean...
So what I said in general terms is what happened. The Hippocratic Oath, from time immemorial, doctors swore to not prescribe anything that would be killing, and to not kill. Their entire focus was on healing and lengthening life. And in 1957, the American Medical Association, I believe, changed the, and the only reason I say I believe is because I'm not quite confident of exactly who did it, but that's probably it. Changed the Hippocratic Oath. They just changed it. And now it basically says, I'll be a good person and I'll obey the law. It doesn't say anything about not prescribing abortifacients. So there you go.
Other questions?
I have a comment. I was the post-abortion director for the Lakes Region Pregnancy Care Center in Laconia from '93 to 2003. And I did the post-abortion classes. And I had a lady who was 85 years old that had been carrying that since she was either 18, 19, or 20 years old. And she happened to walk into our center, which is right there on Union Ave. It is now Aspire, but they still have the same goal. They just changed the name and updated it since I've been there. And I was able to walk her through so that she could finally let go of it and have peace and that type of thing. It was really heartbreaking. had a class of probably about 20, 25 people, and women at that time, because there wasn't any men that were involved.
Any other questions or comments?
I can make a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
So you just have to, first of all, thank you for what you've done. And those pregnancy centers are God's answer to the abortion industry. That's what they are. They are how we are overcoming evil with good. So if you have one like Aspire near you, there's options in Dover, there are 14 in the state. I just urge you to support them any way you can,
Yes.
because they are dealing with women, and they target women who are abortion vulnerable. Right? And they bring them in, and they counsel them to, with the intent of them not aborting. They are not directed in what they do, but their bias is obvious after you've been there for more than a session or two. But they're doing great work, and they're saving babies on a regular basis. And it's the same thing with the women and men who are witnessing in front of the abortion clinics. They save babies every year, but not in the hundreds, but in the dozens.
Other questions or comments? Thank you, thank you.
I have one
Jade?
real quick. I just wanted to ask if you could talk a little bit more about the significance of from 20 weeks and your statement about the fetal life bill, just because I have a lot to learn about that. And also tomorrow, my babies will be 24 weeks, and this just to lend a little gravity to the situation. You can see their faces very clearly. You can see their fingers, and you know, they talk about weeks a lot, but this is what it really is. It's not just a week gone by. Like, these are 2 babies, so they're...
Those
it's-
pictures.
And they probably would be, this is a little crass, but there could be a middle finger up there for the administration that is dropping the ball on the formula situation. And then also, let's not forget to buy the rest of these tickets for the Merrimack County Republican Convention. Thank you so much for being here, by the way.
Any other comments or questions? Because then I'm going to put...
Let me just
Go
respond
ahead.
to what she had to say. So the 20 weeks and the 24 weeks. We're in the political arena. And you have to get enough votes to make things work. So when it came to the homicide statutes, we would have much rather gone way earlier. But we could get the votes for 20 weeks because we could talk about a pregnant woman and her family and what has happened during the pregnancy in that 5 months, which is very often involves things like naming and other things that would be done. A lot of times they're decorating the house by the time that, practically, right?
Paint colors.
And people could understand that and identify with the idea that there was just as much harm from killing that 20-week-old as anybody else. So that's why it's 20 weeks in the homicide statutes. In the Fetal Life Protection Act, we chose 24 weeks. Now, that was because, and again, this is all political, the Supreme Court has issued guidance which stands today that states can only ban abortion after viability. And viability, according to the Supreme Court, must be determined on a case basis. That viability word was costing us that bill. We were losing 10 votes because we used the word viability. And people would say, viability, well, that's oozy, right? And I'm not voting for it because it's oozy, right? So, today, medically, viability is at 23 weeks, 22 weeks. They've had babies that have survived at just barely over 21 weeks. But we chose 24 weeks because it was conservative. And nobody would argue, and nobody did argue during the whole debate in the House, and all the things that we heard, that 24 weeks was not viable. So it stayed within the Supreme Court guidance, and we were authorized by the guys in the black robes to do what we were doing. So that's why.
Any others? And then I want to talk about why abortion and abortion issues are going to be big campaign issues. Thank you, Kurt. Thank you.
Friends of Gunstock, and then anybody who signed the Friends of Gunstock and all those.
Yeah, see that's not a right to know.
That man buried in those divine movement.
Well, right.
So, did you read the zoning?
I mean, I was driving, I'm like, I got them right away, and I gotta drive, I'm like.
All right, I have to ask, let's stage something, come on over here. No, come on, just be fun.
No, don't.
Hey, Norm.
Is that your gimbal?
Huh? No, I already took that down. But stand next to him, now ask him for your marching orders.
Right, I'm supposedly your puppet.
Oh, you're my... Wait, where are the strings? The strings, yes, yes.
Are you Geppetto?
I'm Geppetto, yes, right. But your nose doesn't grow
No.
because you don't tell lies. So
Not
that's
Pinocchio.
not Pinocchio. So just do the right thing.
That's all,
Do the right thing.
I'm sure that's all you expect.
That's all I expect. Do the right thing. Follow your oath. That's it.
There we go.
Croc TV.